If there had to be a film of last year that surprised me the most, it would have to be the Emoji Movie. For most, understanding the hidden layers of this film can only be done by multiple viewings, and the more one watches the adventures of Jean the Mayor, it grows more and more obvious that compared to the other releases of last year, this film is unparalleled in its complexity. Tony Leondis, the artistic drive behind such underappreciated works as Igor and Lilo and Stitch 2, Stitch Has an Itch, really breathes fresh life into what under any other hands would have been a soulless concept. And to realise just how well executed this film is, we need only look at its characters. Some of the more novice reviewers criticise this highlight of Leondis' career as having two-dimensional characters. This is reflected in how the poop emoji, expertly portrayed by Oscar-winning actor Patrick Stewart, seems to make only surface-level jokes around the nature of his character. For example, how he creates humour around such delightfully simple things like washing one's hands after using the toilet, or even the turgidity of one's excrement. Now, it's understandable why for some moviegoers these jokes seem too surface level. Modern culture has devolved to the point where any humour loosely associated around what has been dubbed by the masses as toilet humour is automatically assumed to be cheap humour and ultimately lazy writing. Now, that truly is a shame, as when toilet humour is applied correctly, such as it was many times in the Emoji Movie, it lands with poignancy, where it splash coats those around it in fun for the whole family. But Leondis uses this pre-existing notion in today's culture to add another layer to this film. He, unlike any good filmmaker, understands how the audience will react under certain situations, and it was for this very reason he decided to make his characters two-dimensional. Now, to realise why Leondis did this, we need only look at modern society. When people think of technology and the recent advent of mobile phones, where today's youth spends a great deal of their time glued to their screens, what is the core worry? And ultimately, what is the core theme around this recent explosion in advancement? The answer: technology fatigue. It is a common worry that many parents and even those who use said technology have, that because they are spending so much time focusing on the two-dimensional screen, that is hindering their development as a human being because they aren't living life as it should be lived. They just sit there all day angrily screaming at people on Xbox Live or making Harry Potter fanfiction that not even their own mother would want to read. They live their life unaware of the natural beauty that surrounds them, and this has a real effect on the way today's youth thinks, because when an international tragedy occurs like the Syrian refugee crisis or the earthquakes in Japan, or even Filthy Frank retiring, today's younger generation reacts with despondency. Or failing that, some kind of meme, because due to the advent of on-demand media, they are left emotionally numb, where they don't have the ability to realise what is a true tragedy and what is not. This all comes back to the Emoji Movie, because Leondis was aware of this harrowing reality and made it a core theme in his film. It's easy to create three-dimensional characters, but to realise what makes a three-dimensional character and then to use that to create a wide cast of two-dimensional characters really is the mark of a truly great storyteller. The fact many of these characters are of a predictable makeup and say predictable things is a statement on how that very thing is happening to today's youth, because they all grow up according to what the mega companies tell them what to do and how to think.
Guys, look at this picture. Look at my baby.
This is what I ate for breakfast. This is what I ate for lunch.
Here's me in a gym. Here's me in the bathroom.
Everybody's talking about themselves.
As you can see, Leondis uses the Facebook app to reinforce this point, that people today are caring about fickle things such as what other people think about them, rather than realising that what other people think about them is ultimately irrelevant, because the only thing that really matters is what you think of yourself. For a kids movie, where other companies like Illumination create nothing but a hollow spectacle with no real message behind it, this film is the poster child of how a kids' movie should be made. And to further realise why this film put the director Tony Leondis up on the top shelf with Hitchcock and Villeneuve, we need only look at the handling of the primary female character, Wildstyle, or more specifically, this scene.
Oh, you're thinking, because I can make different faces, the firewall will think I'm different emojis.
Yeah, I wanted to say it because it was my idea. You know, women are always coming up with stuff that men are taking credit for.
Now, to a non-experienced critic, this line of dialogue would go over their head, but when you look at it, when you really pay attention to the meticulously chosen words, yet another one of this movie's many themes comes out, and that theme is the anti-disestablishmentarianist rebel-like stance of today's youth. This line of dialogue seems to be a forced-in segue from out of the blue as Wildstyle pushes forwards her agenda onto the audience, when in reality, the fact this line of dialogue is so unbelievable and uncalled for is an intended choice from Leondis, as it subtly implies the irrational nature of many individuals who advocate for such ideas. In historical times, there was no doubt men had it better than women, but with leaps and bounds over the past few decades for equality, it's time for women to stop complaining about unfair treatment from men and get back into the kitchen. While many will not agree with that statement, that is the philosophy that Leondis conveys in this piece. It is no coincidence that every time Wildstyle makes a comment on female equality, it feels uncalled for. It is no coincidence that every time the feminist stance is pushed forward, it in some way makes the stable-minded portion of the audience cringe due to the haphazard delivery of such a philosophy. In the Candy Crush example, this is clearly demonstrated, where Wildstyle complains about how the protagonist Jean is trying to steal credit for her ideas when in reality, the only thing he is trying to do is help her achieve her goals. Another example of Leondis using this technique is in the finale where Wildstyle rides the Twitter logo to save the day back in Textopolis. This, yet another moment that feels unnatural to many moviegoers, is indicative of real life, where many women ride Twitter to shovel their own agenda for what they believe to be a purpose that will quote-unquote save the day, when in reality, all it has ever achieved is passive-aggressive inserts from storytellers where they appease such individuals by pushing forwards their left agenda, but do so in such a way that the intelligent portion of the audience finds the insert genuinely hilarious, as it is a quality joke that really is at the expense of the very people who push forward such ideas in the first place. And the reason many filmmakers get away with such tongue-in-cheek humour is really very simple. It's because not one of the victims of such jokes is really that clever. The Emoji Movie is a textbook example of why you should never listen to critics, because many critics simply don't have what it takes to take a step back and to truly recognise when a modern day masterpiece is released. Because when it comes to providing an entertaining thrill ride, yet also supplying numerous interesting philosophies that are a feast for the brain, no film does a better job than the Emoji Movie. Anyway, thanks for watching, please do like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time on the closer frame of the nerd-written screenplay look.